Okay, we're recording. Welcome to another week of demos and updates. Let's get started with gold miners today.
Okay, I'll start real quick talking a little bit about something I started on last night. We've got this new sign up flow that several people have been working on. Scott and Matt and Bird and me and a number of people have met to talk through for the next launch. Can we start to simplify some of the how we onboard, remove friction, but also recognize that people will be onboarding potentially without an org per se, at least in the traditional onboard way. And so Scott's done a really good job trying to capture some of the flows that we can work through it. So I signed up to prototype a little bit of the flows to try to understand kind of requirements a little bit and vet out some of the workflow. So I thought I would just show you that as part of this. It hasn't been styled by Matt or anything like that. So my goal is for us to work through this week and work through some of the issues in the flow and kind of some of the decisions that need to be made on how things are going to work. And then Matt next week can help us kind of make it look a little bit better and all that. So this is functional, but it's not actually hitting the database right now. That'll obviously come next once we lock down the flow. So the idea is you would have a much simpler sign up from the website. You can just put your email address in or auth through one of the social providers. And then that would just plop you right into, there's no more form, there's no more wait list, none of that kind of stuff. The idea is, it would, and there would probably be a slightly optimized version that you would skip if I'm coming in because I was invited. Obviously, I don't need to ask you a question on some of these things, but again, I haven't worked through all that yet. So this is an idea that I just started with. I just signed up for Pinpoint, and the idea is it's going to ask you, hey, are you using Pinpoint for yourself? Given that some of the new developer profile, the new content, whatever, is likely you can just sort of sign up by yourself and not necessarily have a team. So we want to be able to support those use cases as well. So the idea is you'd be able to say, okay, I'll go through both, but you'd choose, okay, I'm doing it for myself. You would come in and it would ask you questions. Obviously, we'd autofill if we had any of this information. If you came from Google and we had some of this information, we'd autofill it out. But I would fill out, whatever, pick my username, pick my location. Some of these would be optional, clearly. The thought on the role is we would kind of customize things depending on your role. So if you're an engineer, obviously there's going to be some additional things we might ask you, like in the next set of screens. You could then connect your data. Initially, we would start with just cloud because you don't have an agent yet and all that kind of stuff on the self-service. So this would just be cloud initially. And then additionally, as we had, if you were joining an organization, then we would know that you had Jira set up and we would ask you to obviously validate against your on-premise Jira or whatever. But this would be similar to kind of how it works today. You could optionally link any of your accounts. And then you would come in, and then depending on your role, we might ask some additional interest-based questions. And the idea here is this would drive some initial seeding of the data that we would need for content and for your card and some of that stuff. So like in this case, what are you interested in? As we're going to go to, these sort of public and private areas of interest, we're going to have obviously in a future product, this would start to seed that. So I might say, hey, I'm interested in web development and design, and I mostly focus on TypeScript, et cetera. And then, at this point, it doesn't really do anything, but, the idea is then it would put you right into your profile because we've already linked your data, we've already spun things up and started pulling the data in, and ideally this would put you right into the product as an individual user. There's some weird rendering issue. I need to get Keegan to help me with something with the Vercel stuff. So I haven't figured that one out yet.
Hey, Jeff.
Yep.
Real quick on that last one thing that may help to even streamline it further is if, if we're linking their accounts and then we get into their interests, we could pre-populate the,
we will.
the languages.
Yeah. That's why we do it first, because
Cool.
we'll pull some of that data and try to pre-populate it for you.
Cool.
It's that's the plan. Part of it will be also looking at sort of latency, because we don't want to introduce unnecessary latency for that. But yeah, we should be able to get, at least for some of the integrations like GitHub, we can get their top languages and stuff like that. So where we can get it, we'll get it. And where we can't, we'll just let you pull it in, or let you answer it. Any questions before I move on to the other flow? Okay. Obviously the team, the idea is, I'm coming in, this is sort of our current kind of flow. I'm coming in, I'm creating an organization and adding my team members and integrations, whatever. This is kind of our current use case. So the idea here is you would sort of start with, your workspace. So I would give it a name, I'd say, oh, this is Pinpoint. My first team's going to be, Bolt, because they're really cool. And then, because I've already filled this form out, normally this form wouldn't be filled out because for my testing, it automatically auto-populates this. This wouldn't normally fill out it. Okay, we still need to know about the person signing up. So we still have to ask them about their role or their management, whatever. I got to work through the data screens, something I need to work through a little bit with Scott and Tibbet. But ideally a similar thing, you would connect your data. Now you won't have an on-premise agent here. So this would, again, only allow you to add anything that's cloud. But the idea is you would probably, we would need something a little more sophisticated than just linking your accounts, because obviously the way the integration works. The way I built the integration SDK is we should just be able to drop that in. That it's just a React control, so we should be able to just drop it right into here with some slight changes probably. So I need to work through that a little bit. And then ideally on your data screen, we would before we get to this screen, obviously this team screen, we would have, once you've added your stuff, we will start immediately processing that data. The idea is once you get, go to your team screen here, then I could use a secret link, or I could start, just putting people's emails in, and we might populate them potentially as well. Like we talked about with Bert and the other stuff, we might even be able to populate some of this. We'll see. But the idea is, like, while we're processing your data, since it's so fast now, invite your first team. You could of course skip this. There's, it won't force you to do that. But the idea is you could invite your team with a magic link, or invite them via email addresses. And then once you're done here, of course, finish, let's go, and boom, you're in the product. And when you're in the product, you don't have to go through and set up integrations and all that. They've already been set up. So the idea is once your team members start showing up, there's already data and you're pretty much ready to go without additional things you have to do. So that's the idea.
For the about you would still ask the other questions, right? The interest questions. Did you have that?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I might, yeah. I mean, I haven't worked through all of that. I mean, that's something I want to talk to with you and Tibbet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think we would, but a lot of it would depend on, if I'm setting this up and I'm VP engineering, maybe, I just need to work through it. I might put that in here.
Should be the role.
So I just need to think a little bit about how to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's trivial to add that stuff. So.
I think you said it in the beginning, but this would do away with the form. It would just be clicking G Suite,
that's right,
GitHub, or whatever, and you would go right into this flow. There wouldn't be any.
Yeah, or like most websites now, you could just put in your email address, and we'll just send you a magic link, and then you don't even need to auth at that point. We would streamline that, so the magic link would just take you right into this flow. But if you came in through like a G Suite, then it would just put you right into this flow, and then obviously, like I said, populate as much as we could out of G Suite. A lot to work through, but just kind of sort of trying to work through some of the sort of the user experience side of this, make sure we capture the right data and all that.
Looks good.
That's really cool.
Big improvement for sure. Do we have anyone else on the gold miner side, or are we moving on now to who's next? Team now. Last call for gold miners. Nothing
else. Pedro's out. Robin's been out. He just got back this first thing this morning, and then I'm not sure if I don't think Carlos is on. But Carlos, do you have anything to demo? Otherwise, we can move on.
Nothing right now.
Okay.
Welcome back, Robin. Let's go over to Team None.
Thank you.
Okay, we can demo the daily and notebook stuff. Let's set this up. Okay, so hopefully you should be able to see. I've got two web browsers open. So obviously the stuff that Rick showed last week, we've made progress on the kind of block editor component that Rick's been working on. I've been looking at wiring this up. Obviously Rick put together a prototype last week, which we went through and obviously got some pretty good feedback against. And then so I've taken that and kind of let's wire this up with the data model, try and fix some bugs around getting this thing to behave itself, be backed by data manager and everything, and see how we get from there. So this is live. This is running on Edge. You can see there's obviously this doesn't have everything that the prototype that Rick showed off last week had. So we don't have all the ancillary data about like assignments and needs attention issues and things like that, which we want to bring in to help you populate the notebook. We're really focusing at the moment on the notebook metadata and the blocks that you can add. So I can type in basically I can go to any kind of date. If I go to today, then it will create me a notebook for today. We're going to push that job to pipeline so we can create these in advance, but at the moment web app's kind of handling that for us, so we can go to any day and we can create a notebook for testing. And ignore the stuff at the bottom. Obviously there's a little bit of debug information to help us delete notebooks and blocks so we can clean up and test up as we go. So we've got the date, we've got the like a sentiment around what the team feels like today has been or is going like. So if it's not going particularly well, we can say it's a dumpster fire. You can see it's updating on the other person's browser as I'm editing, and you can see real-time edits coming in from the team as well, which is nice. Keep them clean. At the top we have the summary. So this is what we've talked about, the kind of press release. I'll click into this. It shows the compose component. This needs a bit of work around how we kind of unescape HTML and all that kind of stuff. So there's things we need to work on in that respect, but I can update the summary for today, and that gets reflected everywhere. Obviously these you can see the notes are coming in, these blocks are coming in as people are editing them. I can go through and delete something if I wanted to. I'll get reflected. I can add something. We're still working on ordering and reflecting state as I'm editing something. So we have that in the data model. Rick and I were just talking about that about half an hour ago. We can reflect to show that something is being edited and who is editing it. So we'll be able to show an avatar when I'm editing something. So you can see that we'll probably show it like locking a block to show that I'm editing it right now. And then obviously reflect those changes as they come through. So type something really exciting and it appears and gets reflected across everyone's notebook at the same time. So yeah, that's as far as we've got to so far.
That's pretty slick.
That's awesome. It's really slick.
Is this wired into Elasticsearch so it'll be searchable from our search?
Not yet.
Bird always asks the leading questions.
I mean, there's no reason why
eventually.
Not. Yeah, it needs indexing.
I just want to make sure we're thinking about it.
Yeah, there's a Jira ticket for a discovery on that. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Chris, can you fix my spelling of my name?
Yes, he can. Watch this.
Oh, sorry.
Whoa.
Is it? It's like that. Is that better?
No, hold up.
This is gonna be nice. This is really nice.
Okay.
I love it.
Thank
awesome.
I got a question. Were you thinking of doing or adding in like emoji reactions, like Slack style emoji reactions to stuff, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
It'll be
yeah.
like if you open up the activity feed on the right, it'll be a lot of like that. You have like the comment button where you can comment on a block, add a
Yeah.
reaction. It'll be the same thing, really.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, that's going to be a big help. The few folks that we've already kind of shared this with in terms of some of the prototyping stuff are really excited about it. So I think this is going to be really cool.
The thing that Rick and I were talking about this morning, and I know we talked a few times about, is like right now these blocks are pretty basic text type blocks, but obviously these blocks, the way we're building it, we can build implementations of the blocks for all kinds of different things, right? So they don't have to just be raw text. And even one of the things that I was talking to Rick and Scott about is like, you can imagine even just creating a block and maybe it's GraphQL query. I could run a GraphQL query, get back a tabular data, and then I could just right click, or I could in the block, maybe I could have like a visualization, show it as a chart, show it as a table, as maybe an alternative to the visualization stuff that we did, we prototyped out a couple months ago. Like, especially for this type of audience, be really powerful. So Jupyter Notebook style things.
I could see that having a lot of, and just even being able to bring in like, stuff from Grafana and things like that, to where it's like you want to showcase a performance items for the team or something like that. That'd be hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, even a lot of like framework.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, this will obviously support the other things that we do in the compose component and the activity feed, like mentions, and also being able to pull in, entities, issues, PRs, and stuff, and reference those. We just haven't wired that up just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Rick. We can reuse the visualization framework for that, because those, at the end of the day, those are just React components, and those could turn into block types.
Exactly.
And there's that whole DSO we have for adding a query to the tiles is what they're called in the visualization framework. So,
well, it's cool too, because you could have
totally
different levels. You could have like the lower level stuff where you just write a raw query, right, or paste some JSON or something like that, or you could have a higher level thing, like you said, where it's already a block, like it's already one of those controls, and you just like configure it.
Right.
Yep. Really slick.
Yeah, I could totally do this. So I have a question for the group. When I was playing with this earlier, one of the things that is a minor friction, it's not the end of the world, is I keep wanting to use Markdown and I can't. And does anybody else have strong feelings on that?
Yes.
I would love to have Markdown. I think you should have like I think the editor maybe, and I don't know how we figure out the UX, but it seems like we should be able to switch between Markdown and HTML or whatever, rich text, not HTML, but rich text.
Well,
our editor should be able to do that really easily.
Yeah, I mean, like Notion just allows it inline, right? So would you need to actually switch it, or just be able to parse it out?
Well, there's no reason we couldn't parse it out. It's just the question is, you get in these weird. I really want an underline. You want to just be careful that in a rich text thing, if you do Markdown, how do you disambiguate between true Markdown and no, I actually want it to be that way. So. But I definitely like the idea of Markdown, and we can absolutely support it with the editor we're using. It's trivial.
Right. I wonder does it make sense to just go with one decision, like, hey, this is a notebook that is Markdown, and that's what you use to do this stuff, to edit and stuff like that. But like Notion is for, if you consider the use case, it's for anybody and everybody. It's for the masses. But in our case, it's generally developers, developer managers, things like that. So we don't necessarily have to cater to my dad, for example.
The other thing is we can support both. In that I use the Bear Notes app, which is that supports Markdown. And up until very recently, they just kind of mandated it so that it would always show the Markdown notation inline. There's nothing you could do, but that's just how it works, and you accepted that. But you can obviously toggle styling as you would in a rich text editor, but it will apply the Markdown notation around your text. So you would see it in line. I think we could do something.
I'm
similar.
fine with that. I think we could do that. We could do that with the editor we have. I mean, it already has Markdown support, right? So there's no reason we couldn't do that, and I'm totally fine with that. I think the reason we went with Compose is because the we're always going to get HTML. So because that's the kind of the universal representation we get for the integrations is HTML. Now that doesn't mean we can't convert it to Markdown, blah blah blah. It's just it's going to be easier for data science and for a bunch of other things to use HTML than Markdown as an interchange format. So, but there's no reason we can't, we can't do that. I agree.
So
And I'm
why
okay
does
with
the
making
data?
well, Markdown is while it is a standard, there's a lot of plugins, and it's also harder to parse because it's like semantically as a structure. Like, it's for us to like do smart linking, all we need to do is add an attribute to something. There's no notion of an attribute for like if there's something, that I want to like if I want to create an anchor for something and just add an attribute to it that says this is the entity ID for that. Smart linking can do that, right? Very easily, because all it has to do is parse the HTML and add an attribute to that says, oh, make this link actually this type of entity. And in Markdown, we could do that, but then all of a sudden it gets really complicated, right? Because now we have to, if it's not Markdown, if it's in Markdown, but it's not an entity, we have to turn it into an entity. It changes the display characteristics, things like that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So like the semantic understanding of the structure of the data is easier in HTML, or at least something that has semantic structure built around it, versus like Markdown is just plain raw text. And you have to convert it into something that then has that semantic structure, and it's potentially lost. It's got a lossy issue then, right? Because you can convert it both ways.
Mm-hmm. Because in the data science API, we're converting things into HTML. That's what we're doing with the smart link.
No, we already have it in HTML. All we're doing is we're modifying the HTML to augment the data. So like if you take something like let's say you have a Jira link, we detect that that's actually a Jira issue in our system and rewrite the URL, and we annotate that the entity type is a issue and that it's a entity ID of 1234, not just BE1234, right? We smart link all that information. So when it shows up in the UI, when you click on that link, it's actually going to go to one of our things, and eventually we could again render that as a card, or we can do kind of interesting things with that data because we've done entity detection around that content.
Right. Okay. All right. Something to think
and
about.
Because it's HTML and the Compose, it just works. Even like an anchor can still be an anchor even if it doesn't have a link to anything, right? It's just semantic meaning, right? Like we can take Rick Blaylock, like we do. We take Rick Blaylock and we can put an anchor around Rick Blaylock, and we can say this anchor is type user, and the user ID is 1234, and the name is still Rick Blaylock, but all of a sudden that becomes a smart link, right? That becomes has semantic meaning to it. Now, when Compose renders it or any HTML renders that, it's just going to render it as as whatever it is. But all of a sudden we can now turn that into a link. We can do all kinds of more interesting things with it. Again, it's not to say we couldn't do that Markdown. It's just now all of a sudden we have to worry about lossy, stuff. Do we get into kind of those types of issues? And you got to convert it kind of multiple times.
Right. Okay.
So we're definitely worth, like the idea of Markdown, and we should try to, if we can make it work with both, that'd be awesome. But, like the idea.
I like the Markdown a lot. But yeah, what I really hate is like kind of Jira and Notion's kind of way of doing it, because I don't like having to click buttons, and in a web editor, I don't trust like Command B to turn on bold. Right. I'm worried that has some browser function will catch that or something. So if it's Markdown, I would feel that it would have to be something that like always works, like in Jira, you can do like a backtick if you're trying to do code, and sometimes it works. It's just frustrating, and I don't like that. And in Notion, it's the same thing. You if I want to like make something bold, either I got to know the command or I got to do a / command. I wish I could just do ***.
Right.
Good stuff. Anything else on Team Now?
Yeah, I can walk through some of the entity recommendation stuff we got going on. Let me share my screen.
Mustache, by the way.
I know. I'm trying to get to mixed status over here.
Wow.
Infectious.
Yeah, right now I'm in the phase where I just don't look in the mirror. So, let's see. All right, cool. Yeah, so just for the scoring parts for entity recommendation, I know we talked a little bit about it in the past, but whether a user subscribes to a issue, PR, epic, repo, etc. You can see we're handling, we have a PR similarity matrix and an issue similarity matrix. Right now, these are two different matrices, but like eventually they'll just be one matrix so we can kind of link issues to PRs and vice versa. I just need to kind of better handle the different fields in issues and PRs. And then we're also just for the like epics, repos, projects and users, we're just hitting the activity scoring model. So we're just hitting that API, just sending it, if a user subscribes to one of those entities, if a user subscribes to an epic, we'll just send that API the epic ID, and then it'll spit back, 10 or so other similar entities. So that's kind of the gist of how this is working right now. There's still kind of some weird things I need to figure out and a couple bugs I need to work through, but if we go over here, you guys looking at GraphQL?
Yes.
My playground? All right, cool. So this was just kind of like one recommendation I pulled out. You can see here we have like 2 issues, and that's a pretty strong correlation, like 0.95. It's on a scale of -1 to 1. So, and then if you look at what those 2 issues are, they're both epics. Sorry, and one's an August hit list, and the other's August pricing change. So a lot of it is based around the language too. So obviously they both have August. They're both, prod 904, 978. So you can kind of see how the model's working there. It's a lot like NLP based. And again, that's obviously just kind of like one strong correlation where we would recommend it. Let me see here, but there's also, if I get rid of this, there's just some kind of weird janky stuff going on right now. Once this runs. So, and I still don't have like the entity thresholds completely wired up. So like if you were to look in Edge and look at these recommendations, not everything you see in Edge is what we would recommend. If you scroll down here, there's just like kind of a lot of like, you'll see a lot of 0.5, 0.6 similarities. So a lot of that threshold isn't in place, and there's something weird going on with these entity types. But that's just kind of a high overarching view of how it'll look when it's all said and done.
Nice.
Graph playground's running super slow right now, but yeah. So we'll send we have this entity ID, and then it'll just give us back these recommended entities, and it won't be a set number of recommended entities. It'll just be based on a threshold, and that will include, the entity ID, type, and similarity score. So if you're, we're looking at it from the UI kind of front end perspective, it'll just kind of search for this entity ID to automatically subscribe the user to.
It's cool. Cool.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's all I got there, unless there are any questions about it. Cool.
Good stuff. Is that everybody on Team Now? Should we jump over to Team Bolt now? Looking forward to seeing some of the developer profile stuff.
Let me try to stop sharing here whenever I can.
I can show a quick demo of EBS versus EFS. Let me share my screen.
The money shot.
That's right. Why about this? Oh, here we go. All right. So, real quick demo. Delete these things out of the way. All right. Originally we were using EBS volumes, which is kind of like just a hard drive. So I'm going to create 2 pods here. I use an EBS volume. And we can see once one of them comes up that the other one won't be able to. So one of the limitations with using EBS storage is that only one pod can use the volume at a time. So one of these is going to go to ready, and the other one's just going to stay in container creating forever because it can't mount that volume, right? And then what we could do is, you know, kill one of the pods, and we can see, right? So EBS came up. Oh, they're both running. Whoa, that's weird.
Are they rewrite?
What happened? Huh. Maybe it created a different PVC.
Yeah, I was gonna say it probably created a new claim, right? Attach volume there.
It's weird.
VE.
Huh. Yeah, when I was doing this before, only one was coming up. Well, let's see what happens when we go into them. Yeah, so we have out1 and out2.txt. And so the pod is just kind of sending some timestamps to a file. Cool. Well, I wonder if it's because they're on the same node. They got scheduled to the same node, and that's why they were able to
That's right.
both mount. So normally this does not happen. We just got really, really unlucky or lucky. I don't know, whichever you would prefer. But cool. This makes the rest of my demo really stupid. But we can also bring up 2 more, and these both share. These both share this EFS claim with the AWS EFS storage class. You can fit however much data you would like in these. There's no volume size. So we can really blow through a lot of money if we are not careful a little bit, but it costs about 30 cents a gigabyte a month. So here again, we have this out1 and out2, right? It's going to look pretty much the same. Then I could, echo. Right, so now we have this text.text there. I can exit, go to the other pod, shell into that. And we can see that we're able to access that file from the other pod as well. So we're able to share this data across multiple pods because it's all mounted into the same device.
So for the technical geeks, I mean, basically EFS is just NFS, right? Some sort of optimized version of NFS. Right.
Yeah, basically, it's just a network mounted volume that, yeah, it's just a network mounted volume. We can share it across multiple things. It has some endpoints for each availability zone that you specify. The way the persistent volume claim works in this case is every time you make a claim, we look at the claims. Every time you make a claim, what it's going to do is create this volume here. And what that's going to do is create a directory in the root of the EFS volume. So anything that uses that volume claim would have access to the data that is attributable to that claim only. When I delete this claim, the whole directory gets blown away on the volume, So this sort of lets us, have some amount of safety between pods accessing each other's files and information. So the way we did this, or the way we've used this sort of idea, is we look in Cloud Agent, right? All of these Cloud Agent volumes are all on the same EFS volume. They're just different directories en route. So each customer sort of has their own claim and has their own directory kind of automatically. And to the pod, it looks, no different than if they just had their own volume themselves.
Awesome. How much money did we save by changing this?
About $6,000 a month.
Wow.
Impressive.
Yeah, we were really, really over provisioned when it came to our EBS volumes. So if you can get your provisioning correct, EBS is still cheaper. Other than, and we would probably go that way, other than the fact that you can't mount it to multiple nodes. But it's really hard to sort of nail this provisioning when it comes to the current agent. We have 14 customers in stable that use more than a gig, and everybody else uses less than a gig. But the max is 6 gigs. So how do you sort of, fit that into one provisioning statement when it comes to these volumes? It'd be kind of difficult. So even
the
if
news is with Agent 4,
to,
we don't need storage at all. I mean, we need Scratch,
Right.
but for temporary,
Right.
temporary file storage, but we don't store,
Yeah,
we don't do source
and then we
code,
could
and we don't
use
do any of
the-
that.
and then we can use the
Out of the
volume
box.
directly on the node.
Right. Right, the root volume, yeah, exactly.
But going forward, it's probably still a good idea to change like our
Absolutely.
storage class and stuff. Robin,
Well,
you gonna ask
I'm
a
wondering,
question?
would it be, and maybe it isn't, and maybe it's something we'd have to look into, but would it be, I mean, I guess it's not cheaper per se than S3, but would it be an alternative for the data science side where we actually have to push and pull models constantly?
Yeah, actually, that's something John and I were talking about. Right now, we store our models in S3, and then we store a reference to the model in Redis. So we have to kind of manage this cache back and forth, and
Right.
which models we're holding in memory and stuff like that. Or we can write it to this network EFS drive, and,
Right.
just
Right.
kind of mount the claim, and then the model's right there already sitting there and waiting for you to use it.
It's faster probably
have to-
too,
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
one of the model cache ways that we do it now, because holding models in memory was blowing pods out. So we store the reference to the right link in S3 in Redis. We actually store the model on disk and then load it in memory on demand. So moving to EFS, like it's already on disk, it's already in a local directory. So
Right.
we just pull this in here and the model caches stay all the same. So
Yeah, it's cool.
Great work.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome.
Any other questions?
I had a question, but I think you answered it. But
Oh, perfect.
so is yeah, I just couldn't get why anyone would use EBS, but I guess it's cheaper if you fill up the disk.
Yeah, if you know how much storage you need, EBS is cheaper,
Okay.
right?
All right, that makes sense.
By like a third.
Okay. All right.
The problem
That makes-
is actually making sure that you provision correctly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Anybody else from Team Bolt have anything to show?
I can show some of the new profile stuff. I've made some progress. Let me start showing here. Okay, here we go. So what you see here, this is sort of like the first rough version of the editable profile. So all of this is gonna change, like in terms of like the URL and sort of where it lives and how it looks. But for the time being, this allows you to edit your profile. This works on stable and on edge. So you can see I have mine all filled out. and it sort of expanded into the full screen mode. And so what I can do is I can edit any of these fields. So for those of you who already have them out in the wild, yours are running on Edge, so you can edit them from there. But we can also now set them up on stable going forward. So there's a few things you can do. You can edit. You can edit a specific work experience, and if you mark it as being current, that is also your little title up here. So you can see this title just goes based on the current job that you have marked. I'm planning on doing some cool stuff around drag and drop for some of this stuff. So when you want to like reorder work experience or accomplish, you can just drag them to reorder them, as well as select the favorites. But everything's editable, so you're allowed to override your profile. You can also add your favorites, which is pretty cool. So I can go in here and I can add a GitHub one. So I can do like Pinpoint. I think it's called Cards React. So if I go and add that, assuming I got the name right, which looks like I did not, basically it'll go out to the GitHub API and it'll populate this little list. So all I have to do for these is add them. It looks like I'm having a Graph API issue, but yeah, all you have to do is add the repo name and your username, and it'll populate all the stuff for your favorites, as well as getting like the stars and the branches. So yeah, you can add your social media. So this will be really good, so we can stop putting that JSON in that repo. For those of you who have already put profiles up, it was a little tedious to edit them and create them. So now you have the full control over it yourself.
Awesome.
Really nice work, Keegan.
And this all uses iframe messaging. So this profile is actually an iframe out to our cards application. So it keeps all the profile UI in the same place, and basically we just send back and forth some messages. So if you go to this page right now on your own profile, it'll probably say that the current user has not made their profile public. So you'll have a button there where you can switch it to public and start editing it, because everyone's profile gets created by default as hidden, and then you have to explicitly enable yours, and it'll be editable just like this. Hopefully by the end of today, I'm going to have the mutations in for setting up your vanity username. So you can claim your Pinpoint username, and then we can access that when we're embedding in the profiles instead of having to know the ID of your profile and like which environment you want to use. But that's about it, unless there's other questions.
Are we going to be able to squat vanity names so that we can sell those later on to?
Dude, we should do what Hey does.
I've already done a bunch.
Hey.com. What?
Do it.
You
Do
want
it. Charge more for short
name?
ones.
$5,000.
How much?
That's right.
Hey.com, that's what they do. If you want like a 2-letter email name or some of the popular ones, like rick@hey.com, it's like a couple $1,000, isn't it? It's something crazy. I can't remember what it is, but yeah.
I said I don't want to be that company.
Oh my God. Yeah.
The profile cards, by the way, I've shown them to a couple of people just in conversations. Showed them the link to the doc, and people are really amazed and impressed with them. I think even the Facebook Live team mentioned it when Jeff was on Facebook Live, but it's impactful to just have something small like that out there in the wild, powered by Pinpoint, and then just the things we can do with cards going forward. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Does this stuff auto-populate, or is it all user-driven?
So eventually, we're going to be able to auto-populate some of this stuff, but right now it's all user-driven in this first pass.
Okay, so I could change all those things for the.
Yeah, so like my top languages, you can see they're all stored as these ratios. So it's right now it's fully configurable, same as like these the departments that you work in. You can give the department name and the percentage of your work that it is. Eventually, this is the kind of stuff that we can start to try to auto-populate based on your data.
Okay, cool.
Now, what is auto-populated from your private profile is your name and your avatar. So this is the same avatar, and you can see it's the same name that I have on my private Pinpoint profile.
Cool. But you could have a different avatar, like you said, for your public profile than your internal one or whatever.
That's
right. You can override it.
Because we automatically generate that one. You may, I wanted a little bit more control. So this actually, I believe, is a different photo than what shows up in Pinpoint for me, although I'm not positive.
Cool. It's awesome.
Hey, Andrew, do you want to maybe walk through the Figma for the dashboard? Do you have that up? Or I can do that.
Sure. Figma. So, this is the sort of design right now for the developer dashboard or my workspace. Some things to draw everybody's attention to is we have a right now space. This idea here would be, your next meeting on your calendar, issues that you are blocking or issues of yours that are blocked, and maybe you can reach out to someone to let them know, like, hey, can you please work on this issue so I can get back to my thing. We would have an upcoming section. This is sort of the calendar integration that lists off what sort of meetings you have coming up, either today or tomorrow. We have a needs assistance area. The idea behind this is you have some tickets in progress. We can run those tickets through the auto assigner, remove you from the list, and sort of whoever's top on that list would probably be a good person to reach out to if you need help, right? So in this case, data 396 is assigned to me. When we run it through the auto assigner, it comes up that Rick would probably be the second best person to work on data 396. So we're going to recommend Rick as someone to talk to if you want to pair program or just ask questions. Maybe he has some ideas.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool, like on the hover state. I know it's not in the design probably, but the hover state to actually show because maybe there are different issues, and I don't know which one Rick can help me with versus which one Chris could help me with.
Right.
Kind of cool to like in the hover, like show Rick could help with these 3 issues and Chris could help with these 4 issues.
I agree. I think that's a pretty good idea. This middle panel, we have work, right? This is your in progress, needs work, PRs that need approval, or tickets that are reported by you. Just sort of give you a quick rundown of what work you have and what you are working on or is upcoming next, and sort of things like that. And then finally, on this little panel here for content, we're going to build out sort of a content management system to put in blogs and podcasts and sort of assign different either coding languages or high level concepts to those blog entries or blogs in general and podcasts, and then hopefully start to populate this list of content here for users. So I mostly do a lot of work in Go and Python and Kubernetes, so my content list would be a lot of Go and Python and Kubernetes. As we get more sophisticated with it, we could use engagement data and things like that to hopefully start to build out a recommendation engine to, profile people and, get them the content that they're going to actually engage with, rather than, just here's a Go blog, Andrew, on how integers work. Like, oh, cool. I kind of know how integers work. I don't think I need that, but maybe better recommendations for people. Any questions or comments?
And what did we end up doing on the notes tab? I know that's Scott and I met with him earlier this week. If you slide back over the notes tab, did he do anything, or is it not? I guess we can't really click on it.
Notes will be one notebook with a running list of comments no selection by
Okay.
day. So
Yeah,
this
perfect.
would be kind of the analog of I open up a, notepad every day, or I open up a notepad and just put sort of notes in there, either
Perfect.
through OneNote or text editor.
Perfect. These are my private notes, basically.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, one thing Rick and I talked about yesterday that might be interesting as we start to think about the notebooks in more universal format is the ability to kind of create a notebook. So like having a list of your notebooks and things you want to have in certain ones based on however you want to do that. But under there, it could be almost a folder structure of things that you want to kind of keep tidy. Even you could add a team notebook to your folder structure, right? So you can easily get to everything. But something like that. It's kind of just
I think
taking this
starting with
across the whole
simple.
app.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think starting what we talked about, just for everybody's benefit, what we talked about with Matt was like, let's start with just one notebook and let's see if it gets used, and then we can come up with hierarchy and structure and create more and things like that. It's awesome.
Oh, Andrew, you're definitely the demo for most tabs. I don't know who has most tabs open. But you've got to be.
Yeah, no, it's almost always me.
My God.
Somebody had a question.
Solve that problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question for the feeds stuff for your like blogs and podcasts or whatever. Is there a way you could like hold it, or will it be like persistent, or like Rick posts like 10 articles a day or an hour or whatever, and I want to go read those, but I don't want them to get lost or whatever, right?
This is where we talked about with Matt. This is where bookmarking and all the stuff on the sidebar would kind of come in. So some of those controls that we have on the sidebar would need to get designed into this. Scott and I talked about with Matt earlier this week. But ideally, yeah, within that you'll have the same kind of controls that you have on the feed side will be there.
So when you go into your bookmarks on the sidebar, you would see your podcasts and your news and anything else you had chosen to watch or bookmark.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see a lot of value from being able to like create like a sort of like reading list of things that I want to do. So like if I have like some spare time, I can just look and be like, yeah, I flagged these as important. And now I have time to go back and look through them.
Well, and then the other thing we've talked about was, then initially we'll drive the content, but very quickly, like let you drive the content, right? So you might post something and then other people will see that you've engaged with it and, or you'll recommend some content and then, that would be the sort of phase 2. Because if, a good example is like if Keegan posts something about React, I'm probably going to go read it, because like we're trusted sources, right, of sort of information. If Rick posts something, I'm not going to definitely read it, but pretty much for everybody else, I'm going to read it.
Exactly.
Is there anything else for today? Or are we all in? All right. It's a great session. I'll share the video as usual. Good job, everyone. It's awesome to see how much the product is changing every week and how quickly we're moving things along.
Great work. Thanks, guys.
Everybody is awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Bye-bye.